Hey everyone, Mitch coming in with the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show, and let's be honest, you know the drill at this point. Modern Horizons 3 is probably the most leaked set of all time. At this point, correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on that, and I very well might be, but I can't remember any more leaked sets since Kamigawa, the Return one, the Neon Dynasty one, where I think like half the set was leaked. But at this point, it feels like more than that even. Regardless, let's jump into some new exciting leaks that may or may not be real, but chances are the prior real, we'll see. So again, take everything I say with a grain of salt because these might not be real. We'll probably see during spoiler season whether they are or not. I mean, I guess we will definitely know by the time spoiler season's over if they're real or not. Regardless, Emperor Bones. This one is an interesting one, and this one we don't have all the information, unfortunately, on it because whoever was taking the picture is not a professional photographer, and they maybe intentionally or unintentionally did not take a picture of the whole card. Regardless, all these cards actually I'm showing off right now are custom versions of the actual cards. I will show the images at the end of the episode like I have been on these episodes. This is just a one I made on MTG Design that takes all that text and makes it easier to read and has a picture that's not grainy. So there you go. 2/2 Skeleton Noble for 1 and a black. At the beginning of combat on your turn, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. It has an adapt 2, but we don't know what that amount is because that was cut off on the card. I'm gonna guess, I probably shouldn't even guess. I'm gonna say at least 2 mana, probably more. Whenever one or more +1 counters, there we go, are put on Emperor Bones, put a creature card exiled with it on the battlefield under your control, a finality counter on it. It gains haste, sacrifice it, beginning the next end step. This is a really spicy card. It is one that, again, it doesn't like say like just when you're adapting, it isn't like limited to like, oh, already has counters on it, you don't get that effect again. No, this is like every single time a counter gets put on this, you get to actually, again, basically steal a creature that your opponent has. I mean, finality counter on it, haste, end step sacrifice, but you actually get to utilize that creature at least temporarily. Now, the finality counter on it, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on this, but I believe you could still like blink it essentially and have it come back, because I think it's like if it hits the graveyard again, it's just exiled instead. I think that's finality. I don't think it's like whenever it leaves the battlefield, it's just gone permanently. So you had like a cloud shift type effect. You could like permanently gain control of the creature, but let me know in the comments below. It doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, this is a very powerful effect. Depending on the adapt 2 cost, like that doesn't even impact it all that much, because like if you have this in a +1/+1 counters build, you obviously have other ways to get counters on this. I mean, even if you just adapt to once and then you have this in like a proliferate type strategy, you can get this quite a bit throughout the game. Obviously, this is dependent upon, again, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you exile 1 card from a graveyard. You're limited to like at least stealing 1 creature per turn out of graveyards. You're not getting more than that. I mean, if you just save them up, then sure. But like, you're not getting more than 1 a turn because it has to be exiled with Emperor Bones to actually be able to have access to that card. It's not just any exiled card out there. So yeah, this can be very powerful. Again, I would think that this should see play, and I mean, decks that can utilize it well with those counters. So again, counter-based strategies, proliferate-based strategies. Sure, skeleton, tribal, why not? Or just like some additional graveyard hate is nice right there too. But yeah, you'd think that someone who's utilizing this would probably want to take a little more advantage of it than just actually doing that the first time. Yeah, I don't know what that adapt 2 cost is. Maybe it's just like black or like black and 1. I'm not sure exactly. It looked like there's enough space for 2 symbols at least next to it, so we shall see. Not sure though. But yeah, interesting. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on the adapt cost. Moving on. Wheel of Potential. Feels like, you know, they just have like, okay, what do we call this wheel? All right, wheel. Good job. Yes, good job, Johnson. No one. Of. Wow, Johnson, you're a genius. Wow, okay. Look at words that look good with wheel of potential. Something that could happen. Cool, yes. Johnson, promoted. That Johnson works at Magic, apparently. Okay, anyways. At Magic, at Wizards. There you go. Sorcery for 2 and a red. You get 3 energy counters, then you may pay X. We're starting to see that with a lot of these leaks, not a lot of these leaks, but a good amount, there is a good amount of energy synergies. So it's very interesting for those energy players out there that are already there, or new energy players, because we're actually getting some energy commanders. Or at least I think we got one in Fallout, and now at least there's one that probably is coming out in this one. At least one of the precons, it seems like. Each player may exile their hand and draw X cards. If X is 7 or more, you may play cards you own exiled this way until the end of your next turn. So this seems to be the new kind of format for wheels, it seems like, with Wizards. Because wheels can be made in certain less than desirable build patterns for players out there, depending on the play group. Like, oh, I played Narset, Parter of Veils. I think that's the one, right? Where it's like, your opponents can't draw more than one card each turn. It's like, then I wheel. Okay. You all lose your hands. You get like one card back, maybe, and I get all these cards. Yay. So you just kind of shut players out of the game. Now they're changing it to it's like each player may, does not have to exile their hand. So your opponents aren't like forced to get rid of their hand. It takes away from like the randomness essentially out of like, oh, like I just had to get rid of like my really good hand and now I've got like all lands. Or like, again, like you had like a Narset in play and I get nothing. So there is that. That being said, this is unlike a lot of other wheels where the cards are actually exiled. You just don't, those cards are just gone permanently. So opponents have to actually make a decision with that. Like if they have any graveyard synergies or like really need that card in their hand, it's going to be harder for them to actually justify. It's also unlike other wheels where this is a variable amount that is coming back. Like other ones we've seen so far have been like, okay, 7. Everyone draws up to 7. Or everyone draws the greatest amount of cards a player discarded this way, like Windfall type. This one's more like, oh, you can actually get, I mean, technically an infinite number, not infinite, but, you know, like a trillion. If you really want to, you're not going to do that because you have to have that many energy counters, but still, and you're not going to do that because you then lose. And your opponents wouldn't do that because they'd lose too, unless you've got like Lab Maniac. Regardless, yeah, it's interesting. At the very least, it's like, okay, exile your hand and then draw 3, which if you've got, you know, a couple cards you don't care about or no cards in your hand, great. That being said, yeah, you're going to want like an actual energy synergy to actually utilize this card to its fullest. Because, yeah, being able to go 7 or more not only gives you a full new hand, which is desirable for you and potentially for your opponents, but also gives you access to those cards that you just exiled from your hand until your next turn. So you're able to still utilize them potentially, plus the cards that you're going to have in your hand. So it's like additional card advantage. So unlike other wheels, it's like you don't lose out on those cards. You're actually temporarily getting access to them again, and then, yeah, then you lose out on them after that. So it's a very interesting card. Again, I think, like, you probably need energy synergies to really make this one work because if not, like, are you going to go for 3? Probably not most of the time. Next up, Perilous Landscape, a land that can tap for a colorless. Tap, sacrifice it to life for a basic island, mountain, or plains card, put on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, and we can cycle it away for Jeskai colors. So, interesting. So this is, like, kind of in the same vein as, like, Evolving Wilds type, but, like, more specific. But then also it is cycling adjacent. So like you can, if you don't want this in your hand later in the game, you're like, okay, cool, cycle away. That is a specific cycling cost. Like that's pretty intense for a cycling cost. Again, most cycling costs are like 2 mana at the most. And also if it's 2 mana, typically it's like 2 colorless mana, not 2 generic mana. But this one's like, no, it's 3 mana specific colors. But again, you are getting a land that can just tap for colors. So you can utilize that mana right away if you need it. Or once you need to utilize it to go get another land, great, go get another land, for fixing purposes. So it's interesting. It's got a couple of different kinds of decks it can fit in. Obviously, like landfall synergies will love these if this is actually a card, if this is actually a cycle, getting more and more landfall essentially from like fetch land type cards. That's awesome. Obviously, too, like if you're just in a 3-color deck with this, if you're in Jeskai, yeah, amazing. And keep in mind, like, kind of with this, they are going to be limited in what kinds of decks they can be played in because that cycling on there, on like Evolving Wilds or whatever, which like that can go in any deck. This has cycling and it's specific to 3 colors. If there's a cycle of these, again, it's going to be like, okay, those can only fit in decks that have those colors or more. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. Like, yeah, I mean, it's very good. Being able to just utilize it right away for mana, or so it's like better than Evolving Wilds in that way, but it's like more specific on what kind of lands you have to get. So, depends on the deck, really. But again, very interesting with that cycling. So yeah, later on, if you don't need it, you can get rid of it. It's decently expensive to cycle it, but it's got to be worth that in a lot of scenarios. So very interesting. We shall see if this one is real. That could be a really impactful thing, especially if there are a lot of these out there. Again, we just finally saw like Escape Tunnel, which was printed in, was that Karlov Manor? Was that Karlov Manor or was that Outlaws? I can't remember. Regardless, let me know in the comments below. Regardless, probably Karlov Manor. I don't know. It just sounds like more thematic there. This one, yeah. I mean, also is a bit more specific, but again, it's interesting to see like them playing with like more common fetch lands that can do some exciting things that are very, very good. So yeah, Escape Tunnel, I think I forgot to say, is better than Evolving Wilds now. So like we're starting to see more of that do in different ways. Moving on, Emissary of Soulfire, a 1/4 Jin Monk that costs 3 mana in Azorius. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. Pay 2 energy, put an Exalted counter on target creature you control, activate only as a sorcery. Have we seen Exalted counters as a thing before? I don't know if we have. Interesting. Whenever a creature control attacks alone, it gets +1 until end of turn for each instance of Exalted on permanent you control. It's a pretty powerful thing with the right strategy out there. Again, if you're just going to be swinging with one creature and you've got a bunch of Exalted counters out there, you can just like pump that creature a ton. Keep in mind that Exalted, I believe, correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, but I believe that's correct, does stack. So like if you have, let's say again, you get an Exalted counter on one of your creatures and you proliferate that again and again and again and again, and that creature has like 5 Exalted counters on it, and you have another creature attack, just one creature attack, that one creature that has the 5 Exalted counters on it would still pump that other one 5 power and toughness. So yeah, being able to get a bunch of Exalted counters out there can be very good. Yeah, it's pretty specific on what it wants to do, but like a proliferate type deck might want to consider this one like specifically. Or again, like obviously energy counters deck. Like getting 3 energy on ETB for a low to the ground creature is probably a pretty good thing for energy decks out there. Moving on. Sink into Stupor. Okay, if these are real, things are going to get a little crazy, okay? Because we are getting some more modal MDFC lands. I said modal MDFC, it's just MDFCs. So modal dual face cards. MDFC, I think? Anyways, instant for 1 blue, sink into Stupor, return target spell or non-land permanent and opponent controls to its owner's hand. Okay, so, and the backside of this is, let's go that real quick. Supportific Springs. Did I spell that wrong? I don't know. Anyways, it's a land, enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life if you don't enter the battlefield tapped for a blue. So, the last time we saw these kind of modal lands, only the mythics. We had 5 mythics, and correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this. We had 5 mythics, and each of those were the only ones that could enter the battlefield untapped. Now, it is a lightning bolt to the face, essentially, to do that, but it can be worth it in a lot of scenarios. Again, like in a 1v1 format where you have 20 life, probably not worth 3 life to do that. Maybe it is. But with this kind of a, format, 40 life, yeah, it can definitely be worth paying less than a 10th of your life to be like, yeah, I'll go quicker, cool. I have this come into play untapped. So the fact that you have, again, these MDFCs, which are quite popular, many of them are very, very popular because it's not really taking up a spot in your deck. Again, like it is just kind of technically a land. Like now you want to balance your deck with like basics and non-basics too, like so be careful with that. But still, like it's like an extra free spell in your deck because, yeah, if you need it as a land, you've got it as a land. If not, cool. You have a removal spell. Now, it's temporary removal. It's kind of like a delay counter spell in a way. It's like, okay, take that back in your hand. Do that later, or again, it's just like bouncing on permanent for 3 mana. Each of these are technically overcosted things, right, for 3 mana, but it's flexible, and also, again, because it's not only taking up a spot in your deck, that's a pretty crazy good thing. I can see this one, if it is real, seeing a ton of play. Again, just adding an additional removal piece, essentially, to any deck out there that wants it, that, like, again, depends on the number of colors in your deck, really, but, like, again, just, like, it's just taking up a land in your deck. It's just basically, like, it's not an island, because you can't, like, tutor for it like an island, but still, it's a very good card. So yeah, we shall see if these kind of lands are real, and it looks like they are. They're going to make a big impact, in my opinion. Again, just like the other MDFC lands have, especially since these, again, at uncommon, actually are, I mean, they're cheaper. They're more like applicable. I guess they're not all cheaper. There's some cheap ones out there. I think of the blue one. I think Seagate, whatever that one is. That one costs like 7 or whatever, 6 or 7. This one's very, very good. Very, very applicable to a lot of decks out there. And again, yeah, can come into play untapped, just like that one, versus the other, lower the ground ones, the commons and uncommons, those did not. Moving on. Bogert Tumbler, a 3/1 goblin for 3 mana in black. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Okay. Again, like if this was just the card, it would see not much play, if any play at all. Maybe like a goblin travel deck would be like, yeah. But because this is an MDFC again, the backside being Bogert Bog, the exact same thing as the other lane we just talked about. Enters battlefield, you can pay 3 life. If you don't enter battlefield, tap. But this one taps for a black mana. Yeah, because again, this is flexible. It's kind of like an extra Bajuka Bog in your deck in a way, because this one is just one that's like, okay, it's a land when you want it to be, and again, it can come into play untapped. You don't get to like Bajuka Bog, like exile when you do want it to be a land, but like when you don't want it to be a land, you can be like, okay, cool, like I get like a 3/1 goblin. You probably don't care that much that it's a 3/1 goblin, but still it's like a body, which is nice. The more important thing though is, again, ETB exile a graveyard. Yeah, graveyard hate can be huge against the right decks out there. Make sure you're playing enough graveyard hate in your decks, people. But yes, also, hey, this isn't like taking up a spot in your deck, really. It's just taking up a land spot. It is now an extra removal spell essentially for you to just really hamper a graveyard synergistic deck, like a self-mill deck or a reanimator deck. It can get just trounced by this card. And again, it's not really taking up a spot in your deck. So again, I can see this card being quite popular out there if these are real. Again, like the fact that they come and play untapped is pretty crazy. Moving on, Waterlogged Teachings, an instant for 3 and a Dimir. Search live for an instant card or a card with flash, reveal it, put your hand, then shuffle. This is also an MDFC. And actually one that does break the mold, because you might be thinking, well, this one is in 2 colors. We haven't seen an MDFC in 2 colors, and you'd be right. MDFC and lands. Have we seen MDFC in 2 colors anyways? I don't know. Anyways, a tutor that is an MDFC. Crazy potential for this one. Inundated Archive, also the fact, and I made a mistake right here. The top right, there shouldn't be a mana cost there, okay? So ignore that. Just pretend it's not there. Okay, again, I am going to show the actual, list, the images of the cards at the end of the episode, so you can see that these, I made mistakes on some of them, and I'm sorry, I tried my best, but I missed some things. Land, enters battlefield, taps for blue or black. This, I believe, is our first MDFC dual land, one that can tap for 2 colors. So the other ones, again, see a ton of play, even though they are more limited. Again, they're like, the land side was strictly better for basically all the ones, except for like the pay 3 untapped. The land side was strictly worse than like a regular like Guildgate even, all right? Like they come into play tapped and they just tap for 1 color, all right? But the fact that they are flexible made it so that they could see a ton of play, like Balaged Recovery, I think comes to mind. That one's in green. That being said, this one's like, oh, no. You have a spell on the front, which is a very good spell. Sure, is it overcosted at 4 mana to go tutor for specifically an instant or a card with flash? Yeah, a little, but that doesn't really matter all that much because, again, this is a land when you need it, in a land that gives you 2 colors, so it helps fix your mana, or again, it is just an extra free tutor in your deck because it's not taking up a spot, and that is absurd. That is absurd. So yeah, I can see, like, combo-centric decks could utilize this, but, like, even just at a base level, like, if you've got certain instants that you like care about in your deck, and you just don't really care that you have 1 land that enters battlefield tapped and slows you down just a little bit when you need it, it's a really good card for a lot of decks out there. Again, if you have Dimir and you have instants in your deck that you're like, oh, okay, cool, like I need to go get a removal spell, yeah, I'll do that, I guess. I'll go get a removal spell. If you have a combo, you're like, okay, cool, I'll go get that 1 piece of my combo with this card. Or, I guess, creatures with flash, too, or cards with flash as well, so make sure you can send those. None of those are coming to my mind right now as to what those are, but there you go. I think that Amphibian one that we just talked about in a recent episode also has flash. So there you go. Something like the Amphibian Downpour, whatever that one is. Anyways, a very good card. Again, the potential for MDFCs to be multicolor is pretty crazy, and again, just allows them to, see play in less decks, technically, when it comes to, like, again, it's 2 colors. It fits in less decks, technically, but it also fits into more decks because it's like, hey, it helps fix your mana too, or just tutor be really good. Moving on. This is the one we're doing a quick take on Cayth. I think that's how you'd say it. Famed Mechanist. A 3/3 Dwarf Artificer for 4 mana in Jeskai. And it might not seem like it at first, at least didn't to me, but then it's like, oh wait, no, it's pretty busted. Okay, depending on how you build it. But yeah, the way that you might want to build it, if you want to build it in the most powerful way possible, is pretty busted. Fabricate 1. Other non-token creatures you control fabricate 1. Okay. A reminder for what Fabricate is, and I probably should have written down here right now, but basically it is, I think when it enters the battlefield, you can either choose to get a ++1 counter on the creature entering the battlefield, or you can choose to make a 1/1 servo, I believe, artifact creature. You get both options. One is more broken than the other. Let's finish up the card first, though. Pay 2, tap, choose 1, populate, proliferate. When I was putting together the list of cards with this commander, I literally was like, I just ignored that part. I just ignored that. If this card literally just had no other text on it, if this was a 0/1, doesn't matter if it's a Dwarf Artificer, doesn't matter what kind of a creature it is, it could be a Nightmare. I don't know. It doesn't matter what it is, really. That costs the same. It doesn't matter. All this card needs is other non-token creatures you control have Fabricate 1. And because of that, it is busted with the right kind of cards out there. This reminds me of Grumgully, which many might not think is like that powerful, but it's a pretty powerful commander when built in specific ways, and that one is more limited than this one is, because this has more access to more cards, and the thing that is busted with Fabricate is Persist, because Persist, it is a, well, very broken, keyword when you do it in the right way. Persist is, again, like, when I'll show some cards here in a bit, but it's basically like, Okay, when this creature dies, if it didn't have a -1/-1 counter, if it didn't have a -1/-1 counter on it, enters the battlefield with a -1 counter on it. It comes back comes back from the dead with a -1/-1 counter on it. Okay, I'm saying this all wrong. Because of that, though, again, having Fabricate 1 now, cool. It enters the battlefield. You can also choose to put a ++1 counter on it. And for however many years ago, they changed the way counters work essentially, and -1/-1 counters and ++1 counters cancel each other out, which means that essentially it comes back into play with no counters on it. I mean, it gets both and then they remove or whatever it is. There's going to be no counters on it. And then essentially if it died again, it would just come right back. And then if it died again, it would just come right back. And then if it died again, it would just come right back. So yeah, you can use and abuse persist creatures very, very easy with this. You might think persist is limited to mostly like black creatures. I guess, and there's some green ones out there too. But like, you have access to it more than you think probably with these colors as well. So essentially, all you need are persist creatures. You need a free sacrifice outlet and some way to win with that. And maybe even sometimes the sacrifice outlet is the way to win with that. Like not Ashnod's Altar. I mean, I guess Ashnod's Altar is like, hey, I have infinite mana. There you go. So yeah, consider that. But yeah, gosh, Alter Dimension. There we go. Alter Dimension. That could win you the game right then and there. So there's a lot of ways to just like, oh, okay, cool. My creatures, they leave, they come back, they leave, they come back. Now, obviously, like that might not be the intended design when they designed this commander. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you can like have your creatures come into play and then they make little servos with it too. And then awesome. All right. And, or like, you know, if you want to get counters on your creatures, like you can choose to like go really big into proliferate or really big into populate. And it's like, maybe not. Maybe just go persist. So depending on your play group, maybe don't build an infinite combo persist group deck if your group's not okay with that. But like if you're trying to build this the most powerful way out there, in my opinion, it's probably got to be persist. Maybe there's other combos you can work with it too. I mean, I'm sure there are just like making an extra token, like, you know, that kind of really can help as well. But yeah, a very, very, very powerful fight. I guess like with that, like make an extra token, you could go like Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar, like Annoy Procession, Deadeye Navigator. That's a lot of cards, right? But like those kind of combos could work as well. I guess you just need Ashnod's. Anyways. Or Phyrexian. Regardless, this is a crazy powerful commander when built in those ways. You don't have to build in those ways. But that being said, I'm going to be talking about some cards that work really well with this commander. And again, take everything I say with a grain of salt because it's not been officially confirmed. But if it is, this is a very powerful commander. Make sure you take a look at that card list link in the description below. If your playgroup is okay with you proxying this and then, you know, still playing with it if it's a fake card essentially, right? And then still playing with that proxy in the deck that you built around it, cool. Then maybe pick up some of those cards. If not, wait until this is officially spoiled. If it is actually real, then pick up some of the cards. So maybe you can just even bookmark that tab. Regardless, now let's jump into those budget buys and pricier picks. First up, and again, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because I already talked about persist, but like, let's just read it just to make sure that I didn't mess up the card. 2/2 Masticore for 2 Lesser Masticore. As this cost cast a spell, discard a card. Oh, poor Lesser Masticore. It's just like, oh, I'm the lesser one. All the other Masticores are better. But yeah, discard a card. So that's not nice going down a card, but it's worth it. Pay 4, 1 damage to our creature, so that's nice too, I guess. But what matters here is just persist. When it dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return to the battlefield, under its control a -1/-1 counter on it. Again, it also then has Fabricate 1 because it is a non-token creature, and then you're going to say, oh, it enters the battlefield with a counter on it. Cool. Those two things cancel, and then all of a sudden, you got your 2/2 that does nothing else for you except for you just keep sacrificing and it keeps coming back, which that's all you need to do. You also have Kithkin Spellduster, which I'm going to be completely honest, I did not know was a card. 2/3 Flying Kithkin Wizard that you can pay 1 and a white and sacrifice to destroy target enchantment, so I guess it's a repeatable enchantment destroyer for you if you need it. It also has Persist. Again, a lot of the Persist combinations and combos that I've seen or whatever don't typically involve white, so I didn't know Kithkin Spellduster was a thing, but apparently it is. Moving on, one that's kind of funny. Thunder Blust, 7 2 elemental with haste for 5 mana in red. It has trample as long as it's got a -1/-1 counter on it. It dreams of getting trample. It dreams of that. It's like, one day I'll get a -1/-1 counter on me and I can swing through like ball lightning, kind of, you know, like, yay! No, not with this deck. And it also has persist. So essentially, again, it never gets that -1/-1 counter on it, or it does, then it leaves. Judges, rules lawyers out there, please let me know. I can't remember how that works. Do they just cancel out right away, or do they both get them at some time and then they both leave? It never gets that counter, really, because, yeah, you don't care about that, and it gets it canceled, and you can keep persisting it. River Kelpie, though, this is a really good one. A 3/3 Beast, yes, it is. For 5 mana, whenever it or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. Whenever a player casts a spell from graveyard, draw a card. Persist. This one, you got to be careful with, but like as long as you're paying attention, yeah, don't mill yourself and lose, unless you've got like Lad Maniac in play. But this one essentially is every single time you sacrifice this one and it comes back, again, getting both counters, those canceling out, whatever it is, you are drawing a card. Because this comes into play. Again, whenever it or other permanent enters the battlefield from graveyard, you draw a card. So keep doing it again. Maybe don't just go down to like no cards in your deck, because again, if anyone else casts a spell from a graveyard, or if any permanent comes into play from a graveyard, you lose. Unless again, you've got like Lad Maniac, but you might be doing that. Regardless, this is basically draw your deck in combination with your commander in any free sacrifice outlet. Twilight Shepherd, another good one as well. 5/5 Flying Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that are put there from the battlefield this turn. Persist. This is a repeatable way to get every single card that was put in your graveyard from anywhere. Again, from the battlefield this turn. From, not just anywhere. From the battlefield this turn, though. So if you lose everything, bring it back again repeatedly. You typically don't really need that. I mean, I guess if you only have like one other part of the combo, then sure. Like if you have Martyr's Cause and just that, cool. It still works out very well. Or River Kelpie works very well because you're like drawing your deck. Martyr's Cause, enchantment for 3 mana in white. Sacrifice a creature, prevent all damage to a creature or player from one source. I mean, this is a very weird old card like this. And gosh, there was another one. It's like someone jumping down the stairs. I can't remember what that one's. Let me know. There's another enchantment that costs the exact same. Martyrs? No, it's not Martyrs. Something Devotion. Anyways, you are being able to sacrifice a creature for free, which is really weird in mono white, essentially. But yeah, free sacrifice creature outlet typically isn't something that mono white does these days anymore, but old cards do apparently back in Urza's. So there you go. Fanatical Devotion. We got there. That was bugging me. It was going to bug me. I'm sure some of you already commented below. It was like, it's Fanatical Devotion. Such a good card. Regardless, this one helps you just prevent damage from it. Again, if you have just this plus any of your persist creatures, this is just, oh, okay, cool. Prevent all damage I want to prevent. Yay! But obviously there are ways just to win, like, Impact Tremors. An enchantment for 1 in a red. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. There's a lot of other things that can fit in this spot, okay? Like, any of the things are like, hey, yeah, when, like, a creature comes into play, deal damage equal power, like Warstorm Surge type effects as well, or like some things that might mill or whatnot. Like, there's a lot of ways you can win just by a creature either dying an infinite number of times. Rules lawyers out there, 1 trillion, whatever number you want to pick, okay? I understand that you can't technically go infinite, but it's infinite, really, okay? So, yeah, you mill players out, you damage them out. However you want to just win the game, you can win the game once you get this combo going with very, very, very little support. There you go. Loshio, Clockwork Scholar, I want to point this out as well. Again, you don't have to go in for this commander to do powerful things. A 2/4 Elephant Artificer. Prevent all combat damage to be dealt to attacking artifact creatures you control. And then on top of that, whenever one or more artifact creatures enter the battlefield under control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. That is unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So with this one, yeah, if you do want to go fabricate with, making those servos, great. Artifact creature tokens, you can go big into that and say, all right, every single time I fabricate one, I'm going to be drawing a card. Again, that could be in my opponent's turns as well, potentially, so make sure you're keeping that in mind. Junkwinder, a crazy, brutal card. 5/6 affinity for tokens, so you can usually get this out for just 2 mana, which is lovely. Blue, blue. Whenever a token enters the battlefield under control, tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. It doesn't untap your controller's next untap step. Brutal. This is like a shutdown card, essentially. Like, again, once you're at a certain point, you can fabricate a ton. You get a bunch of creatures in play. Maybe you've got, like, mass blink effects as well, like Eerie Interlude. Is that the name of that one? Something like that. Anyways, being able to just blink all of your Semester's Ends number 2. There you go. Just being able to blink your entire board of creatures, get them back into play, and making a bunch of other servos. Yeah, you can build an army quite quickly with that, but also, like, lock down your opponent's things with this as well. Steel Overseer, very simple, very effective. 1/1 construct, tap, but a +1 counter on each artifact creature you control. So again, you got your little 1/1 servos. Now you can make them much bigger over time with something like this. Speaking of which, make them more effective right away. Tempered Steel, enchantment for 3 mana. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. So again, yeah, you can go really big into like just like artifact creatures, even just like playing a bunch of artifact creatures that also bring another artifact creature in play. You can go super heavy into that and then just go, yeah, Tempered Steel, hit your opponents for a lot harder. Again, a 3/3 servo is hitting a lot harder, much more threatening than just a 1/1. You can also use your artifacts in different ways, though. Inspiring Statuary. Non-artifact spells you cast have improvised. So your non-artifacts now can be cast thanks to any artifacts you have, including those servos that you're making. So yeah, it's kind of like those servos now are like kind of mana dorks, but specifically for non-artifact spells, so keep that in mind. Research Thief, another good card as well. Flash Flying, whenever an artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. There's ways to give evasion to your artifact creatures or just creatures in general, like levitation could do that. Regardless, being able to just swing with a ton of servos that you don't really care about surviving or dying or whatnot. You're just like, okay, 10 servos to that player. And they're like, I have 2 blockers. And you're like, cool, I draw 10 cards or whatever. So yeah, make sure you're taking advantage of things like this as well if you're going that direction. Thought Monitor. Affinity for artifacts. Again, take advantage of having a lot of artifacts in play if you're going in the fabricate, create tokens direction, especially with like Annoying Procession, those kinds of cards as well. Double up on them. Enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. Lovely. And also brings another friend with it again because it is a creature. Universal Surveillance, Improvise. You can also take advantage of Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast a spell. Each artifact you tap costs for 1 of it, essentially. So, again, whereas the statuary actually helps you cast other spells, this one's specific to it. That being said, just, like, tap all your servos and draw a ton of cards. What's not to love about that? Draw cards. I should have said that first. Organic Extinction, or just, like, one-sided board wipe in any way. It costs 10 mana, but you're never going to pay all that, most likely. Improvise, because your artifacts can tap for this. Destroy all non-artifact creatures. So again, yeah, you get rid of your creatures, but maybe you've got persist creatures too, so keep that in mind. But also, sure, now you just have a bunch of servos that are angry and probably pumped from like Tempered Steel, and they can take out your opponents. Next up, Fury Stoke Giant, a 3/3 Giant Warrior for 5 mana. When it comes into play, other creatures you control gain tap 2 damage to our creature or player until end turn. So, yeah, a good pricey pick. I mean, I guess basically with all these, like, basically any card that has persist, essentially, you probably want to consider if you're going in that direction, because the more persist you have in your deck, the more chances are you get one piece of your combo. So essentially this one, though, also gives you a way to be like, okay, cool, like, I can, like, have my creatures ping 2 damage, like a shock amount of damage, 2 players, 2 creatures, whatever I need to ping, great. And again, if you're going in, like, a direction that also incorporates, like, going wide, great, you can do that as well. You know, get your servos, whatever, but also have persist creatures, too. This is brutal. Glenelendra Archmage. My goodness, is this just mean with this commander? But again, if you're going persist, you're maybe already going a little mean. 2/2 Flying Fairy Wizard for 4 mana. Pay a single blue mana, sacrifice it, counter target non-creature spell, and it persists. This is just, hey, do you have a blue mana available? Okay. Is your commander out? Okay. Yeah, you can counter that non-creature spell. Do you have another blue mana? Counter that one too. Another blue mana? Counter that one too. This is repeatable. Counter every single non-creature spell that you want to counter, essentially, as long as you have the mana to do so if your commander is in play. Yeah, this is gross. So have fun with that. On top of that, obviously, this can combo with all those other combinations we already talked about so far. And like I mentioned earlier, yeah, if you've got like a free sacrifice outlet like Ultra Dementia, I don't know why that one's escaping me right now, but yeah, Ultra Dementia, you can just win right then and there. That being said, Cauldron of Souls is also a very good card. I love this card. Wizards, it used to be budget-friendly. Reprint this card, please. Cauldron of Souls is an artifact for 5. Tap, choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains persist until end of turn. Fun thing with this one I do want to mention, kind of off to the side, you can be very political with this. Again, it's choose any number of target creatures, not just your own. So if an opponent over there and you're like, hey, that player just cast a board wipe. That wasn't very nice of them. How about I help you save some of your creatures? If I do so, what are you going to do for me? You can make some deals. You can wheel and deal with this kind of a card and be like, yeah, I mean, what's it cost me? I'm just tapping this. I'm already saving some of mine anyway. So, like, might as well save some of yours if I can get something out of it. Again, like, okay, bring your creatures back, but you can never utilize those creatures again against me, and you have to keep attacking with those creatures against that player over there. They might make that deal, because if not, they're just out those creatures anyways. But yeah, with this, it's like, okay, cool. All my creatures have persist, which is lovely. Technically not usable and abusable when it comes to like going infinite with like a non-persist creature. A creature doesn't already have persist because like it's just giving it to like that creature until it comes back. When it comes back, it's not going to persist again. Unless you have a way to like untap this again and again and again, which I guess technically there are, like Deceiver Exarch plus this, I guess could work because it can untap this, I guess, right? Does that untap artifacts too? I can't remember. Something that ETBs and untaps an artifact. Okay, there you go. That could do it. That being said, yeah, this is already just a great way to just, not permanently, but like, it's like a get out of jail free card for your commander each time. As long as you can tap this, your commander gets persist. Your commander does have Fabricate 1, keep that in mind. So all of a sudden your commander's like, okay, I leave, I come back, no counter is on me. And then again, if you can utilize it again, like on your next turn, if your commander's about to be dealt with, like again. So it's like a good like commander insurance card as well. Keep that in mind. Goblin Bombardment. This is, oh, it's showing up as 99 cents. When I looked it up earlier, it was like $1. I don't know how it dropped a penalty, or $1 or whatever it was. Okay, so this version of it, I don't know why I didn't find this one. Okay, so this should be in the budget buys. Technically, this is just like strictly better than just like Impact Tremors or, you know, Martyr's Bond or whatever. Essentially, it is both a sacrifice outlet that is free and a win con all in one. So this plus any persist creature plus your commander equals I win. This, again, is sacrifice a creature. It deals 1 damage to any target. So essentially, you sacrifice your persist creature. You ping someone in the face for 1, and they're like, ow, okay, I mean, that hurt, but like what? And then you're like, okay, my persist creature comes back. No counters on it again. Sacrifice it again. Sacrifice it again. Ping everything you want to ping. Take out creatures. Take out planeswalkers. Take out battles, I guess. I don't know. Can you take out battles? I can't remember if you like attack those or not. I think you can ping them too, right? Anyways. Players' faces. You win. That's just all that matters, really. Just the players' faces. You win. Moving on, Mycosynth Golem. If you are going with a go-wide strategy with artifacts, making those servos probably, this is amazing. A 4/5 affinity for artifact golem that costs 11 mana. You're never going to be paying that. You might even get this out for free. Speaking of for free, artifact creature spells you play have affinity for artifacts. Wizards reprint this card. Goodness gracious. Okay, essentially this one is all your creatures have affinity that are artifact creatures. So you're playing artifact creatures, you just get everything for free. Crazy, crazy, crazy card. Word of Invention, a really, really, really good card as well. Improvise, so again, your servos can upcast the other artifacts as well. Search life for an artifact card that can mana cost X less from the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Again, if you are going the combo route, this can also just help you get, like, you know, again, like a Ultra Dementia out to just win if you need to. So there you go. And then finally, Red Replication. Again, I kind of just ignored essentially that, like, pay 2, tap, choose 1, proliferate, or populate. Those are both nice, again, and you can go into that. Again, when I was coming up with these card ideas, I was mostly going like, what's the most powerful version? Or like, go wide with artifacts. Kicker for 5, put a token on the battlefield that's a copy of a target creature. If it was kicked, put 5 of those tokens on the battlefield instead. Populate, of course, works very well. I mean, like, it's not bad to, like, populate like a 1/1 servo. It's not a bad thing, but, like, you'd rather populate, like, a really massive creature. Cool. So, like, make a bunch of copies of a creature, populate it further, get its ETB, get its LTBs, whatever it is. Just get a lot of good effects from it. So if you are going to go into the more, not reasonable, I guess, but combo-y approach with persist and stuff like that, and you want to play into that ability to populate and proliferate, yeah, make sure you're considering ways to make creature token copies of creatures. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are on these leaks. Yeah, a lot of really exciting ones. Let me know your thoughts are on this brand new commander that, yeah, if you build in the persist way, it's pretty busted. So you can do some crazy things with it. Goblin Bombardment, put your opponents out of the game and all that kind of stuff. So lovely. Again, if you are interested in this commander, I urge you, please, ask your playgroup first. If you're like, I want to build around it right away, ask your playgroup if they're okay with you proxying it and then continuing to proxy it if it actually isn't a real card, okay? Ask them first, please. If not, like, bookmark the card list link in the description below and then pick up those cards later when the actual card is revealed to be real, if it is. Again, like, a lot of these leaks seem very, very, very real. Most of the time leak happens, they are real. It would take a lot of effort to fake these cards. So yeah, a lot of crazy things on this one. Again, like, modal dual lands, and then also like uncommon modal lands that come to play untapped if you want for 3 life, but still crazy. So yeah, let me know your thoughts are on all these. Make sure you're staying tuned for more exciting quick takes, spoilers, everything else leaks. My goodness, spoiler season starts in I think about a week or so. So yeah, make sure you're staying tuned for that too to see how many of these are real, and also if there's any spoilers left after all this. I think there probably should be, but we shall see. Leaks are crazy right now. Of course, as always, thanks again, though, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.